Greetings, everybody. This is Wesley Pepper, and I'm with
Siza Nkosi.
right, and this is
and with Ansa.
Greetings, my king. Yeah, man. This is episode 85. This is the Art Lexcia podcast. We are live and up and running. A few technical issues this evening. I think the network is giving us some drama, but it's all right. Before we move on, let's just talk to our last episode. Big up to Horsey from the Locate Market for coming through, my brother. That was a really dope ass interview, man. As you guys will probably see that the episode was published a bit later, but these things happen. But like if any of you guys actually went to the Locate Market, it'll be really cool to hear from what your experiences was, especially the entrepreneurs, because as you know on this platform, we want to talk to more of you guys. And that was a super cool concept, man. And I think the episode went pretty well. So big up to my brother for coming through for that. Siza, and on your side,
I'm very excited, especially with last week's episode as well, just acknowledging those concepts about Black love and Black power, energy, and Pan-Africanism, which means a lot to us. And before this recording, actually, we were speaking to our guest today, Ansa Fungurani, who is an artist.
My brother Ansa, it's really cool to have you on this platform. Just like we were talking off air, like your work really grabbed me. The color really stood out. The color palette, the images, how you represented the images, how you incorporated tech. I thought the VR headsets was a really interesting feature. I've actually, we'll get to that. I thought that was really cool. So firstly, welcome. And you say it's very cold over there. So how are you? How are you this evening?
Well, I'm well. I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much. It is cold here. But yeah, we brave through the cold. And just talking in terms of the VR headsets and the color palette, I think it's I'm glad that someone noticed that and took cognizance of that because it talks about looking into another dimension and looking into another possible reality other than the realities that we are faced with. And I hope that's what we're creating now, and that's what we'll be able to create in this conversation.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So let's start at the beginning, man. You were saying that you are from your parents are from, was it Malawi and Zim, and now you're based in Lesotho. Interesting part of the world, the Mountain Kingdom. I've actually personally never been there. It's definitely something I want to try. I know a bunch of people from there. I know a bunch of artists, writers, and so forth from there. But I personally, the closest I've been to there was Bloemfontein. So how did you end up there? And like, you say you have a 9 to 5. Before we get into the art and all of that stuff, let's just, for our listeners, just say, just this is who we're talking to.
Oh yeah, so I was born in Harare, and I consider myself a Zimbabwean first and foremost. Like culturally, I'm Zimbabwean. So when you try to make the distinctions between, say, the people of Zimbabwe and the people of Mozambique, the line is very thin, and they cross because these cultures cross in a very similar way that the cultures between, say, South Africa and Lesotho cross, and it's the same with Malawi. So I consider myself, my identity is rooted in the culture that I was exposed to, the lessons that I learned when I was growing up. The genetics are important, yes, but in essence, the person is a symbol. And then I came to Lesotho. I work at Morija Museum and Archives. Currently, I am managing a project called Reappropriating Lesotho's Cultural Heritage through new media, which is concerned with looking for traditional Basotho instruments and saving this from the verge of extinction, trying to incorporate them into new media and new technology to the use of animation, motion graphics, and so it's quite a responsibility, really. But an interesting thing is when you, though they're called Basotho instruments, when you look at them, you find that these instruments are played amongst Basotho, Bapedi, Baxhosa, Zulus, Shonas. They're across the continent. Sure. They just have different names. So that's the day job. So an interesting thing is where the day job sort of integrates with the art work. And I guess for that, I'm lucky. Yeah. I don't know.
That was very cool.
Go off the tangent.
No, that's dope. Like, that's what we want. Like, this is the platform for that type of thing. This is the Siza?
And I think it's fascinating to me because, like, I think before we got cut off earlier, I was just talking about the fact that, you know, you are born in different spaces. Like, you are born to different, like, people, like, geographically, Mozambique and Malawi, you grew up in Zimbabwe, you are living in Lesotho. So I'm always just fascinated by, I mean, it's all about identity, and you say it's culture more. So, like, you see yourself through the culture that you experience. And, you know, like Nina Simone says, the job of an artist is to reflect the time. So I think, you know, I love what you're doing, and keep going at it. But and we also spoke about decolonization, you know, and this whole idea of using art to contribute into society. Like, how are you doing that with your art? I mean, who's your audience? Who's interested in your art? Is there an art culture in Lesotho? Are you incorporating, because you're working in instruments right now, Basotho instruments? Is it something that's gonna work also visually because it's a music project? You know, like, I'm just interested in how you, because we talk about processes, how you're incorporating all of that background that I was doodling about. Because actually you also spoke, you were talking with Wes about the objects, like in your art, like you have dolls and toys, depictions, and then the color, and you're saying you reimagine the world. So yeah, how does that go into your work?
I think first an important factor is when we say art, we are talking of a specific concept that is defined by academia. And in essence, we are talking about a Western definition of the creative output of communities and individuals and cultures. And I think it's important. This is where we say, sometimes we say, people have no appreciation of art, and we say Africans have no appreciation of art because the definition of art that they have is not the same as the definition they had prior to the globalization of the world, to this form of capitalism we call colonialization. And instead of rejecting one, I think there's need to create an integrated system, because we can't just discard. And we need to look at say, was African art decorative? Was it used in ritual? Was it used in for particular purposes? And then when you go to talk about how art can be used to change communities, I'm not sure who said this, but it might have been Ngugi again, who said art for art's sake is like a piece of deodorant dog shit. Forgive my language. And what he was saying is perhaps yours. There's another saying, a famous one, where he says I hope I'm not misquoting him, where he says, where I come from, all art is political. The question is, who's politics? So there is a functional purpose to art in the African context. In ancient times, it seems that the mask was not just worn for the fun sake of it. It was worn by a sort of priesthood to invoke spirits and to serve a purpose. And we go on to the African novel, which we find was used very much as a tool of decolonization. And in my age, you still live in a world where there's functional art. But an interesting thing is, in graphic design, which is what I practice using computers, the function is to make people buy advertising. Now some people might think that's a bad thing, but I'm looking at art as a function for commerce. and when I think of culture, I'm thinking of the social structure, the political structure, the economic structure of a people. And when we say artists are cultural workers, they are either working within one of these spheres or in all of them. And so I don't know if I approach the art with the purpose of causing change. It's just I tend to realize a lot of things, because in my view, like I was saying to Brother Wesley recently, just now, in my view, art has not just been integrated with technology, with the advent of digital technology. Art has been and is the oldest surviving form of information technology. When our ancestors were in the caves of Southern Africa and they had an idea in their heads and they wanted to transplant that idea from the head and put it somewhere, they then took charcoal and blood and they started to create images such that anyone who came across that, and those things have survived for centuries. And anyone who comes will see a moment of time frozen, and that's a form of technology. Today we have photography to freeze that time, but back then they had the artists who were often, shamans as well, and so for me, I think I don't want to run away from your question. There's need brother. For a sort of integration between
run. I'm listening on the side, so run.
I think there is an integration between art and technology. And I mean, like, what is technology? It's just basically science put to a useful end. And when you create a tool from a scientific method, then that tool is a piece of technology. And that's the same thing when you come to design. When you create art, and it has a function. Whether that function is on a mystical level to heal society, or to be able to enable someone to sell and actually earn a living.
No, I'm so sorry, because I noticed that you are saying a lot that, I mean, we need to talk about, which is urgent, like when you talk of economic structure, as part of a culture. In last week's episode, actually, we were talking about the township culture market that Locrate was, trying to establish, that they are doing and celebrating. And I mean, I'm fascinated by how do we integrate, man? Because art is also a medium that is sort of expensive, so like the opportunities for young ones to get into the field because I know you're also talking about animation. Where do you go to school for animation? How much does it cost? Like, yeah, I don't know.
I think that's a very pertinent question, and it's very clear. It shows the inherent eliticism in art, and the history of art is such that either the artist was a priest or was a prince or something of that sort. And what you are probably talking about is the democratization of art. I think art is only, as I said, I think it's information technology. So when you're talking of the democratization of art, you are talking of the democratization of information. So I would say it would be really expensive to make the work that I make. If I was going to, we have Office National here. That's where you can buy paint, and with the amount of work I churn out, and if I were to get the paint, I do have brushes and stuff, but it's just expensive. So what did I do? I have integrated all this into one tool. So the question is, look, I don't want to run away from the question again. We used to talk about, at a certain time, we used to call artists creatives. I used to hate that term. People still use it. And then came TikTok, and then came YouTube. And now we have creators, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
Now a creator is very clear. This is what they do. They create. A creative, I don't know, sounds like an adjective to me.
Interesting point, Ansa. Okay, can you finish up? Sorry, finish up.
No, I think you can come in.
You mentioned from looking at your work, from talking, and from your earlier questions, there was a few things that is consistent that you mentioned. Firstly, the marketization of art from a Pan-Africanist perspective. Well, you and I work from a visual art perspective. Siza works from with words. So essentially, sometimes I think it's similar. Both that you got to hold it to your face. What we're very interested in here is I use technology. And part of that, like what you were saying as well early on, is about how you guys are sort of introducing old Basotho cultures into this new technical landscape we're living in. I mean, like they're introducing 5G technology across the country. I read early on in the week that the cheapest 5G phone is 3.5. So to all the listeners out there, like it's becoming pretty affordable. And I would suggest to all the listeners to like start budgeting for that, because that's definitely where we're heading. And on this platform, we are planning for that. Just before we get to the real juice of it, so just explain to us what medium are you guys using at your work, and how are you using these mediums in your personal space in creating?
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So an interesting thing has happened in the past, in that Adobe, which is the biggest creator of visual tools for the modern cave painter, has introduced all those tools on the cloud, and they have this all creative suite. I think some people will call it sweet. I don't know.
Yeah, I also know how to pronounce it. Sweet. I just say Adobe package. I also know how to pronounce it. It's funny.
Is it creative suite?
I don't know.
Creative
suit or sweet. I don't know. I guess if you want to be fancy, depends how you pronounce it. If you're trying to fit in the demographic circles.
but anyway, when you're looking at the tools that Adobe have, what they have done today, which is very interesting for anyone else who's not working in with these tools, is this has been consistent within computers, and when computers are being used for creativity, is we lower the entry level every time. So at a certain time, you needed to be a programmer to actually use a computer. And then at a certain time, we had a visual interface. All you could need to do is just point a mouse and you could do it. And then, so they have introduced things like a Sensei, which allows you to actually, which is AI powered. Adobe Sensei allows you to be able to, it's still pretty pricey, I think, if you ask me. But then, of course, we have acquired it because we're part of the project. Perhaps I did not mention the details of the project, and I will mention as I'm supposed to mention.
We can get the details a bit later or in the conversation. What is interesting?
So,
what mediums you guys are using?
Yeah.
So in terms of processes, we always start with the traditional medium. I think it's important to integrate. You cannot really skip perhaps you can, but a better approach is to increase practices rather than diminish them. So I start off from a point of where do I start? When I'm looking at an image I create, I don't start from an idea or a concept or a thought. I start. Yeah. Let me think of it as a poem. If it was a poem, I would start with the word. So if it's a visual work, then I'll start with a line. And I think line is always important. Starting off with a line and being able to put that line on a piece of paper or on a tablet. So I use a regular, it's a Lenovo tablet for sketching. And
I'm familiar.
And so you start off with the line, and the line sort of like is almost a road that takes you somewhere, and you can see where it's taking you, and it's taking shape and all that. And then you start to fill in. I think first you honor tradition, and then that is using your own hands, and but then you make the processes quicker, faster, better. You can choose your colors much better than if you were just, mixing paints is one of the interesting aspects of painting, which makes it chemistry. So I paint, and sometimes you spend a long time trying to just mix the paints. But today you have this beaker and a test tube that you can sort of like create all this magical chemistry, and you could deploy this. And I think this is really important when it comes to going back to my sister's question, when it comes to the economic aspect of it, because we were living in a global so-called free market economy, and we're all competing on the same turf. It doesn't matter whether you're from which country, but then it's very difficult to be competing with someone who's got the best canvas and the best paints and all that. But today, we're all using the same Adobe material.
Interesting.
We're all mixing the same paints. So I can stand with a kid who is in the so-called first world, and I could challenge them, because the tools I have I have access to those tools that yesterday I wouldn't have had access to, because yesterday they were material and today they are no longer material. And so we're getting lesser and lesser material, and they are becoming, well, some people might call it data, might call it information, but perhaps you might look at them as being spiritual, depends on how you look. Because what are you paying for? You are paying for time, and it doesn't matter what your machine is. Someone who's working on a MacBook might be faster. Someone who's working, but at the same time, an imagination, and if you give me the same amounts of paints, I don't have to buy those paints. Every single day I wake up, I have all those paints. And I think that's fascinating.
Interesting. Saying a whole bunch there.
Yeah, and it's not a race, I liked that analogy you made, because it's really not a race. Like, we're not chasing something. We are just like, it's a way of being. And thank you for actually, because Wes, this is reaffirming me, because the process of how we create our art, obviously, like it's a big deal, because if you're an artist and academic space, you're forced in a structure, for example, and like you said, art is not like an idea. It's a spirit. It has spiritual aspects that happen with everyday life and experience. And like, you can't sit down and say, okay, right now I'm going to write a book about, you just work with it. That's what I wanted to say. And I like the concept of a free market economy that used to exist, actually, that enables us to imagine and dream and create the work that we do. Sorry, Wes, I just
No, I was actually just listening to you. But just for the listeners, firstly, we'd like to know what you guys having to say about the conversation so far about, so please subscribe and comment to this channel. In the future, we will have a live feed where you guys can ask questions live too, and maybe even do it in video, and maybe do it in VR, since we are talking about that trip over there and on that 5G tech trip. There's a few interesting points there, is how you're saying that you use these digital tools to tell stories. So it'll be cool to sort of pick up from there, and how you view that as a spirituality, especially from a Pan-Africanist perspective. So that was super interesting. And it also comes across as your philosophy, which also drives Siza and myself. It's interesting how we're connecting on this platform, and how a Pan-African belief driving our processes, our content, and so forth, which includes this platform that we're talking from.
Oh yeah. So thank you, thank you for coming back. Yeah, that's a lot. I like the fact that you also say a lot in one go, and that's really some mental gymnastics for both of us. And so yeah, I mean there's this notion that, so I'll show you the VR glasses I've been using are not any fancy. These are Google cardboards. It's a card box, and I place my phone in there, and I have all sorts of experiences. It might help with ideation and stuff. So as I was saying, I think the most important thing is the lowering of the level of entry. Now, that's economic level.
That was very cool.
Financial level that makes these things accessible. When you're looking at this pair of glasses, really all it has is just these glasses, and this is cardboard. This could be manufactured anywhere in Southern Africa, tell you the truth. And even if you're not manufacturing the entire thing and you're importing the glass in itself, you would lower the costs on a huge level. So I think in literature, for instance, there was a concept of idolizing the pauper poet, the suffering. Franz Kafka has a story called The Starving Artist. And the starving artist is someone who sits in there and tries to starve. And artists have told themselves one other thing, and they've said, you know what, I'm not gonna get a day job. And because we have been told two things that are wrong. Number one, we've been told that you should get a job that you love. No, you should love the job that you have. If you can't get a job that you love. And I think these are practical pieces of advice. They're not from me. I got them from someone else. And if you're lucky like I am to be able to work within your field and within your sector, then you could integrate that. So in terms of the integration of technology, I mean, you could see I live in a thatch house. It's actually thatch. There's a you can see and there's a and there's sometime I'm having VR experiences in this space. So I think there has been a problem of either or. If you're an African or if you're an artist, then you have to reject. Okay, so reject. I mean, the Makerere debate was all about this. The question was, what is the language of African literature? And we said, other exponents said, proponents said, well, writing in English is enriching the white man's language, and writing in French will be enriching the white man's language. But some could see how these colonial languages could, in fact, help in integrating African people. And so I don't think there's an interesting thing is what you find in places like Nigeria, where they then reject English and then at the same time they create pidgin, yeah. which is neither. When you look at that, and I think an integration is perhaps, this is my view, an integration is perhaps the best approach to the world, because it's not about if you can't beat them, join them, but it's about what Ngugi says in now I have to find the name of the book, but there's a time he says, I've been quoting a lot on Ngugi. I'm not actually a fan. I'm more of a fan of Chinua. And there's a time he says, go to learn from the missionaries, because the missionaries had come. So the idea is to go and learn from them and then come back. And I think before we start to go to learn from them, what I would like to encourage amongst us is more integration amongst us. If you are, like Wesley, you've mentioned that you've been to Bloem. It's not very far. I've been to Johannesburg. And I've been to Cape Town as well, and so if we start to we talk of a global world, but then it seems as though globalization is something that happens to them, and we're not integrating. When we talk of Pan-Africanism, we're talking of an integrated Africa, not a divided. I mean, like, I don't want a super state or anything of that sort. Otherwise, it would be difficult. If I commit a crime in one country, the jurisdiction is the same all over Africa, then that won't be good, But close economic cooperation, and art does certainly provide an avenue for that. Perhaps that's something that you guys and I might want to explore.
I think so.
Simple visits, because it doesn't really take that much for me to visit Johannesburg or Cape Town or Durban, or I don't know, or for you to visit Morija, which is where I live, or Maseru, which is one of the few. It's the only capital in the world actually where it's also a border town. So you just move into the border town and then you are in the capital. And I think these visits are essential in the sense that as much as we might have VR goggles and we have Zoom and all that, there is also we need to mix it. We are not getting, we're not discarding one. So because you have Photoshop, you're not stopping from, you continue to draw. Because you have a laptop, you still carry a notebook and a pen, and I know poets know the pleasure of scribbling things on the whim when they're when they're busy. So I don't know. Did I?
No. That was, you said a mouthful there, my brother. And I am excited about all of this because, for example, I didn't even know about the goggles and art and VR. I'm just grateful that we have the art Lexcia and we can share this information because
yes,
we are definitely stronger together. And then we need to share and care and love each other by, through these platforms and, get to think differently because that's what we do, guys. Art has got an ability to just take you to other worlds that don't even exist.
Mm.
And as Africans,
yeah. So
I feel
this
you
was
there,
beautiful,
Siza.
man. So like how but
No,
how do we
Tanisha?
get hold of you, Ansa, right now?
Yeah. I
And
just to the
how
listeners,
to
if they want to access all your skill set, if they want to, do you do freelance type of stuff, that type of thing, or you just like, you just focus on your current projects or work?
Well, so I would mention a point which is a weakness, not only to me, but I imagine to a number of artists, and I think this is an aspect we haven't ventured into as yet, which is an integral aspect of your podcast, which is the entrepreneurship part.
Yes, please.
And I believe the entrepreneurship is actually an art. And if one says they're an artist, it does not mean that there are some, who are poets, painters, writers, but there are some who are sculptors, and that's what they are. And they need to get to a certain point where they say, I'm a sculptor, and that's my art. Now I understand the environment I'm operating in, but I should also acknowledge that there is someone else who has a better understanding of how to navigate the other arts, whether it's the art of negotiation in that business. So one of the problems I really encounter is I spend a lot of time making my art. Well, that's how I relax and chill, and once I do that, I don't really think how to turn that into the next dimension. I think, well, I've created the greatest act of all. Creation has been now. So I tend to get a lot of people sending me messages asking me for how much a certain product cost, how much how I could work with them. And to tell you the truth, until I engage someone else on my team, these opportunities will continue to pass. And I think it's important, this is a message to other artists as well, to say, well, sometimes you might be amazing at the painting. It doesn't mean that you're amazing at striking the good deals. Now you need to find a person who can strike the good deals. And this is where collaboration comes in.
Nah, hey, dog, I feel you there, my brother.
Collaboration.
I feel you there. I suck at certain things too. in my many years on the planet, I learned one trick of survival is to stick in your lane. And like I go to left or to right, it's just all. Nah, I hear you. I hear you. Oh God, I hear you.
I think it's a very difficult thing for artists. It's a difficult thing for artists to admit. Because look, we have this creative powers, and we believe we can do. I mean, like I look at someone and I say, well, you can paint that, you can do it, but they can do amazing things that I can do, and they can do those things with less the time, less the effort, less the amount of money I would put in there, and then I think this is where you're talking about an art industry or a creative industry. That creative industry can only be collaborative. It's just intuitive to think that if you were to stick in your lane, as you put it, and just do that thing that you know how to do best, allow others. That means that when you end, you have 7 other people who do things that you can't do. and when they're hungry, they pray for your well-being, because they know that as long as you do your one beat, you can say someone will do the marketing for me, someone will do the and we don't have to take it in the traditional sense of like an artist needs a manager. We do have people who we know who are really talented, who spend a whole lot of time on social media and stuff. And time I don't spend on social media. You know, sometimes I don't respond, and that's how people communicate today. So why don't I engage that person who spends a lot of time on social media?
I agree.
So
I agree with you.
Yeah, and for me, the whole thing is all about, you know, collaboration and working together, because we are stronger together. And it's funny you mentioned that, you know, right now in the African sense and spirituality and understanding, we're in the Ma'at season, and Ma'at is about balance, you know, that harmony where you see yourself and you do you, so that there'll be balance in the world. You know, we can't have, you know, you just need to be authentic so that this whole system can work. At least that was my understanding, you know. So thank you.
Sorry, Siza, just before we wrap up, man, I just wanna have like a sort of a closing point, and then we can wrap up. My brother, like just the point you're saying, then I think it's quite poignant that we do this towards the end of the episode. I mean, like listening to how you're talking and your references, and how you're using everything. My brother, this is almost very in line with what we're trying to do over here. Just an interesting point about. I also do think that like certain skill sets work better if you just focus on that, and that's a form of job creation, because we are working in this what they call it, these white people say fourth industrial revolution. And I do think like people like us, like who's in the arts, in you know, collaborating with tech as a very interesting platform where we can offer, you know, this. I don't like using job creation. It sounds like I'm a politician, but like I do think there's room for that, and there's also room for nuanced type of work that we might not even forecast, or rather foresee like today, that can come with. And I just think that is a very, very interesting point. And we'll probably definitely on this platform explore in the years to come. So that's sort of my closing point. Man, I thanks for coming through, man, and and thanks for sharing. I just, this is another, just a small point quickly. I like where you're sitting in, man. Like my understanding with the cold, like if you have a high ceiling, it gets even more cold. But like it doesn't, from where I'm sitting, it actually looks cozy. It looks
warm.
Yeah. So
yeah.
closing point.
Hopefully, have a reader, and we love readers.
Well,
So, yeah.
Oh yeah,
the thing is,
that's what's up.
Yeah.
the thing is the thatch. The thatch, in fact, is a good insulator. So
They say that
in the summer it's cold. In the summer it's cool in here, and it gets really hot outside. And in the winter, yeah. So just some, I guess, technology, how to use grass.
You know, like
this
how
kind of
beautiful is
grass.
that? Like it's such a natural product that is everywhere.
You know? Yeah.
Ansa, thanks for coming through, my king.
Yo, thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing us your experiences.
Yeah, and please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and let's engage, because that's the point also of the Lexcia.
Yes.
To continue the conversation, to really build, with all that we have, which is our art, like my art, So thank you so much, guys. And yes, it's the Lexcia on all the social media spaces, and it's Siza Nkosi and Wesley Pepper on all the media spaces.
Yes, we've also just recently opened a Facebook page. Believe it or not, it took 85 episodes for us to actually do that. But there's a method behind the madness, people. So please, I'll be inviting people here and there, and we'll get somebody else to do it, full on to manage a page in the future. But there's finally a Facebook page. We'll also be there's also a new email address if you want to get hold of us, send any request to want to be interviewed, etc. It is theartlexcia.podcast@gmail.com. So we're finally getting there, people. Okay. We're finally getting there. Yeah, and also, next week, Siza, we are talking Credo Mutua next week, correct?
Yes, we'll be joined by a scholar, Teboga Khope. She just got her PhD, working on Umkhulu Credo Mutua's work. And yeah, we're excited about that.
Very excited to be talking about that. As you know, that's a passion project of Siza over there. You can see when she gets excited. And yeah, definitely for that. And also a lot of other cool things coming our way, man. And that's a wrap. Ansa, thanks for coming through, my king. We'll be in touch with regards to when the episode go live. It'll probably be this week. I think we should be publishing 2 episodes this week. And my brother, thanks a lot, man. And on my side, I will be in touch with you with regards to Gallery 360 Africa. I see Caesar's got her hands full there, literally. And I think that's a wrap, guys. Take care, man, and talk soon. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.